Greetings and welcome to another Lessons with Odin. Today I am going to be sharing with you the third and final piece of the YouTube series for the carnivore pendant. I will be showing you how to do this little spiky bit here. I do have another spike tutorial, which I have done this in a peyote stitch instead of, this one is going to be more of a right angle weave. So just to get to, there are a lot of similar techniques in that one, so I recommend you guys checking that one out. This one is also using a sort of circular right angle weave, so if you guys need a little help with that too, I also have a bead cap tutorial, both as a PDF form and as a YouTube video tutorial if you guys want to check that out. I will leave the links either in the suggestions or down below, or both, and yes. You can also do this with other shapes of pendants and such. You'll just have to adjust the beads that you're going to be using and such, but feel free to experiment, and once you get the technique down. For this piece, you will need a spike bead. I am using a 17 by 7mm for this project. You will also need 8 3mm beads. You might be able to get away with 4mm as well. I just haven't tried it out yet, so feel free to play along. Size 15 Delicas. You might be able to get away with 11/0 rounds as well. Again, I haven't tried it out, so I'm not promising anything. And you will also need size 15 rounds. And of course, a needle and thread, and whatever the hell you plan on putting this on. So, let us begin. Okay, so what I'm going to do is start off basically the exact same way that I started the peyote version of this spike tutorial. I'm going to thread on my only spike really. I'm going to thread on 11 size 15 Delicas. And then I'm going to pass back around so they are anchored like this. So if you're starting this off on a different shaped bead, a smaller or a larger one, you want to keep in mind these few things. You need whatever your final ring of beads to be divisible by 3. So you're going to take into consideration 2 halves that are going to be like this. So I put 11. And I'm going to put 11 on the other half, and then I'm going to add 1 in between on each side to make the space even, making my total beads 24. Dividing 24 by 3 is 8, so that's how many beads that I'm going to be using on the sides here. That's how many 3mm beads I have. So that's just some math for you guys to figure out if you want to try something on a different size or don't have anything to you. So I'm going to continue on. I'm going to add another 11 on the other side. Of the spike bead, just pass it through again so that I end up with 11 on both sides. Now all I'm going to do is travel around 1/2 of the beads so that I meet the tail. And pull tight so that everything's snug on the bead. And then what I'm going to do is tie a overhand knot with the tail and the working thread. And then from here it's up to you to decide what you want to do with the tail. You can either get rid of it by passing it through a couple of beads and putting half-hitch knots in between a couple of beads before cutting it off. Or you can just leave it sit there and then deal with it when you're done with the pendant. I'm going to get rid of it because I hate it. Alright, so once you have done the overhand knot, you're going to pass through and continue on the other side of the size 11 beads, or the size 15 Delicas, so that both threads have the same amount of threads inside them. And once you get back into the center between the two sides, all you're going to do is add on one more size 15 and then pass through the other side so that that bead will make a seamless join between the two halves. Like that. You can tell the difference between the top side and the bottom side if the camera would focus. God damn it. There we go. Okay. You can kind of see how this side has a little bit of a gap in here. So we're going to fix that by traveling through the other side and adding one more bead. So I'm in the center, in between the two halves, once more. So I'm going to add on one more Delica, and keep going through until I'm back at the half again. Okay, so from here I'm going to start doing the right angle weave part of it. I am going to add on one 3mm, 3 Delicas, and one 3mm. Then I'm going to count 3 beads, 1, 2, 3, and pass my needle through those 3 beads. Come here. Like that. I'm through 3 beads, so I'm going to pull it tight. And we have these guys kind of hanging outside the flap there. Now I'm going to set up for the next stitch by moving through this 3mm, these 3 beads, this 4mm, downward, and then also through 3 additional beads on this base row ring. So I'm going up the 3mm, through one of them, those 15s, go through the other 15s, go down the 3mm, and then I'm going to go down 3 more beads on this base row. Like that. Okay. Now I'm going to add on one 3mm bead and 3 more size 15 Delicas. Okay. I'll pull those down, and then I'm going to pass through the second 3mm bead that I added in order to attach them, so that I end up with this. Okay. To set up for the next stitch, I'm going to pass through the 3mm beads in between the second and third 3mm. Like that, and then I'm going to go up the third 3mm. Then I'm going to add 3 more Delicas and one 3mm bead. Like that, in that order. You can kind of see why, because our next stitch is going to go over to the next side. So we're going to start with the top section, which will be the 3 Delicas, and then the side section, which will be a 3mm bead. So by adding the 3 Delicas first, and then the 3mm bead, you can kind of see where it's going to fall. So to attach this one, we're going to have to count 3 beads past our previous set here. So I will go 1, 2, 3, and then I will anchor it between those 3 seed beads. Like that, those 3, So then I pull it tight. And then I end up with my fourth set. As you continue on, it's going to start popping up and acting like a cap. So now we need to set up for the next stitch, so I'm going to pass through the third 3mm bead through the Delicas on the top, down the fourth 3mm bead, and then keep going through 3 Delicas on the base round. There we go. Going up, passing through the Delicas on top, and then down the fourth 3mm bead. Continuing to the next stitch, I'm going to go through 3 Delicas on the base round. Like that. Then I'm ready to add my next set, which, if you can kind of see, we're going backwards a little bit to cover this loop over here. So we're going to have to add 1 3mm bead and 3 Delicas. To join it, we are going to pass through the fourth 3mm bead. Like that. And our fifth bead should be attached. Come here. There we go. Like that. Now we're going to set up our next stitch once more, passing through 3 Delica beads in between the last 2 3mm beads. Then go up the last 3mm bead. This should be our fifth one. Our next set starts from the top, so we will have to add 3 Delicas and 1 3mm bead. To join it, I'm going to count over 3 beads on the base ring. 1, 2, 3, and pass through them all. Alright. And then we have attached our sixth 3mm bead. Next, to set up for the next stitch, we're going to go up the 5th 3mm bead, across the top 3 Delicas, and then back down through the 6th 3mm bead. And finally, we are going to pass through 3 beads on the base round. Like that. Since we're starting bottom to top, we're going to have to add our 3mm bead first, and then 3 Delica beads. To attach it, we're going to slip our needle back down through the 6th 3mm bead. Like that. To set up for the next stitch, we're going to pass through the 3 Delicas that are in between the last 2 3mm beads, and then back up through the 7th 3mm bead. Okay. So we end up here. add our last 3mm bead. We're going to attach 3 Delicas and 1 3mm bead. Then we're going to count from 3 beads. And move across that. One, 2, 3. Go down. To set up for our very last stitch on this row, we're going to go up the 7th 3mm bead, across the 3 Delicas, down the 8th 3mm bead, across 3 more Delicas on the base round, ah, there we go. Come here. Don't stab me, please. There we go. You're going through three Delicas on the base round, and then up through the very first 3mm bead you added when doing this stitch. Like that. And we are going to close the final gap by putting on 3 Delicas and passing our thread through the 8th 3mm bead. Like that. Now to set up for the next round, what we're going to do is pass through 3 Delica beads that are in between the 1st and the 8th 3mm beads. Go up the first 3mm bead, and then over a top row of Delica beads. Okay, so once we get to this point, all we're going to do is, you see these spaces in between the 3 sets of 3 Delicas on the top? All we're going to do is we're going to take one size 15 bead and wedge them in between those gaps. So I've added one, passing my needle through the 3 Delicas on the top, pulling it tight, and I'm sandwiching one of those 15 beads in between. Once again, picking up a 15 size seed bead and going through the set of 3 Delicas on the top. Pull it tight, and you got that. Do this all the way around until all the gaps are filled. Okay, once you've done your final set, make sure to continue on and pass through the next size 15 seed bead along the way, so that we end up with this at the top. Okay, now what we're going to do is add 1 Delica, 1 15, and 1 Delica. Then we're going to skip over and pass through the next size 15 bead along the way. So that we end up with a little picot on top. Like that. Once more, we're going to add 1 Delica, 1 15, 1 Delica, and then pass through the next size 15 along the round. It'll kind of go where it feels like for now, but you got it over the base round. Do that until you have completed this round again. Then we end up with this, another round awkwardly sitting on top of the previous round, like this. In order to step up, we're going to take where we left off after adding the set of 3 beads, we're going to pass up through the Delicas bead and the size 15 bead, so we end up in the center of the row we just added. Like that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add on one Delicas bead, and then we're going to jump all the way over to the size 15 seed bead that is on the second round, so that we kind of cinch it up together like that. So we're kind of only working with the points of the new row that we just added. So once more, we add on one Delicas bead, and we jump over, skipping over the one in the lower row, but we're going to go all the way over to the point and use that size 15 there. Pull it tight and it'll start to cinch towards the center. Keep doing that all the way around until you have completed the round. And then you should end up with something like that. It'll be a flat top right on top of the spike. What you might have to do, actually, in order to get it to sit a little bit tighter and a little bit nicer, is to reinforce those 16 beads, which will be the Delicas, the single Delicas, and the 15 beads that you joined them to. You'll probably have to pass through all of those at least once, possibly twice, in order to get them to kind of cinch. So I'm just going to do that all the way around. And there you have it. A nice flat top that goes over the spike. You can put a bail on this, same way we did with the peyote stitch, by adding several beads on, and then anchoring it over on a bead across the way, like that. We basically end up with a little loop here, then just basically reinforcing it by passing back and forth. I went into a little bit more detail in the peyote spike tutorial. If you guys want to check that out, I'll leave a link once more. So that's pretty much all you have to do with this piece. All that's left to do is to add some half-hitched knots before you end your thread. And that's about it. That is your spike bead pendant. Have fun with this one. That is the last chapter of the YouTube carnivore pendant. If you would like to learn how to do the bezeled cabochon, I will leave a link to the Craftsy PDF tutorial down below. And yeah, this was a fun and exciting little adventure. I hope you guys enjoyed. If there are any other tutorials that you think I should be teaching, or if there's anything that you guys want to learn, let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for joining me on this adventure. If there is something that I need to be trying out right now, let me know in the comments down below, and I will see you next time.